Welcome to ringside for this World Championship fight between Victor Galindez, that's the man in the blue with the white trim, the defending champion in the light heavyweight title fight against Richie of the USA. He's the man in the white with the maroon trim. And most unusual this because it's only the second time that a World Championship fight has taken place in South Africa featuring two foreign boxers. The first, of course, was between Petey Sarin and Freddie Miller back in 1937. A huge crowd here at the Rand Stadium tonight on a very balmy evening for boxing. And as you can see, Cage working from behind the left jab. He's a very accomplished boxer. Galindez, we've seen many times before in South Africa, twice beaten Pierre Fourie and Corsie Smith, and well known in these parts, and a bit of a favorite locally. But it's Cage scoring with that left jab in the early seconds of round one. It could become a match winner for him. Galindez is not noted as a boxer. He's basically a fighter, likes to get on the inside and rough up his opponent, and but Cates, of course, is aware of this, and he's going to keep him out as long as he can. Cates got the title shot here this evening by beating Pierre Fourie over 10 rounds, and he aims to take the title back home with him tonight. Men get on the inside. You notice that the heads come together. That could become a problem if it happens too often, and particularly in view of Galindez's style. You see, he ducks low and comes up, and that's the danger thing for Cates. He's got to be aware of that, holding the right hand high, as you can see, and scoring beautifully with that left jab. That punch, as I mentioned earlier, could be a match winner for him if he keeps the champion on the end of the blow. A bit rough here. Galindez likes to rough up his opponents on the inside. We saw him do that against Pierre Fourie and Corsie Smith, and Cates has had the opportunity of studying those films, so he knows what he's up against here this evening. A fast opening here in round one for light heavyweights. Normally they pace themselves a lot slower. Don't forget this fight scheduled for 15 rounds, and at stake the World Boxing Association Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. Cates still probing with that left jab here in round one. You haven't seen very much coming back from Galindez. You notice he likes to work on the inside, tying up Cates wherever he can, and then punching with short blows behind the head. Referee Stan Christodoulou of South Africa will have to watch for that kind of work. But we've, as I mentioned, we've all seen Galindez many times before. We know his style. The question is, does Richie Cates? And now Cates got the champion backed up against the ropes. Galindez taunting Cates. He would like Cates to turn this into a toe-to-toe fight and not a boxing match, and that would be to his advantage, naturally. Well, this has been a good round for Cates so far. Working from behind that left jab, he scored repeatedly with the punch, and there's the end of round one. Well, that was quite clearly a good round for Cates. I would think on most scorecards he had taken that first round. Very good for a challenger to do that. But Galindez takes a little while to get into his stride. We're aware of that. And quite clearly as the fight goes, he's going to warm up. And already he's beginning to take the action to Cates. You might recall Cates was controlling the fight with the left jab in round one. Tried to do that here in the second, but Galindez using good body shifts and sway to avoid some of those punches as he's backed up against the ropes. Cates very confident, doubling up on the jab. You notice that really is a beautiful punch coming from Cates, and he tries a right cross. Didn't quite land, but nevertheless Galindez taunts him, wants him to follow up that punch and come on the inside where he's much more comfortable. And it gives him the opportunity to rough up Cates at every opportunity on the inside. Cates well balanced. You can see he's essentially a boxer. The pace not quite as frenetic as it was in round one here in the second. Cates trying the hook now rather than the jab, and another good punch from him. And he crosses with the right. The American challenger making a very good impression here in the second round. Galindez still hasn't really got into his stride. He would welcome the fight, I think, to be fought at close quarters rather than at a distance. Well, now Galindez counters with the right as Cates came in. That's more like it. Once again, you see the heads bumping together as the men clinch, and that could be a danger as the fight wears on. These big fellas, they punch very hard. And Cates in particular, essentially a boxer who's done very well in boxing lately, particularly with that victory over Pierre Ferry. A convincing points win which earned him this title shot. He's still using the left hand effectively, trying to keep Cates on the end of the punch, and then occasionally following with a right cross. Galindez still hasn't settled into any kind of pattern yet. He's a left jab from him. That's rare for Galindez. He likes to get on the inside and rough his opponents up. Waiting for his opportunity as the champion and just covering up as he's forced back against the ropes. And again, the heads come together. Referee Stan Christodoulou very quick to break the men. Doubling up on the left jab as Galindez. I beg your pardon, Cates. And this is a big breakthrough for Stan Christodoulou because it's a major fight and he's been given the assignment as referee. Lots of confidence in Stan Christodoulou by the World Boxing Association. Cates has made a remarkably good start to this fight. But now Galindez is beginning to counter as we come to the end of the second round. That was a very good left hook from Galindez. And that's the kind of style we expect to see from the champion as we start the third round. Well, Cates has done very well in rounds 1 and 2. Galindez looks as though he might be getting into his stride. He certainly finished the second well. And he served notice that he's now going to start letting his punches go, and he's certainly doing that here at the start of the third round. Cates still working from behind the jab. It's done good work for him so far in this fight, and he's trying to keep Galindez on the end of that punch. It also keeps Galindez unsettled. It doesn't give him the opportunity to let his own punches go. You notice that Cates is backing up the champion all the time. Galindez seems to be content to fight on the retreat, waiting for the opportunity to counter. But that left hand of Cates flashing out time and again. It scores a lot of points for the challenger, sure to impress the judges around ringside. And the judges around ringside are 3 South Africans. A good right hand, but there's a clash of heads. We saw that earlier, and it looks as though this is really serious. The Latin temperament of Galindez beginning to show. He looks as though he might even be acting here. Stan Christodoulou examining the cut. Lots of confusion there. The fight, in fact, was stopped for 5 minutes, and the no-foul rule was applied for the first time in the history of boxing for an accidental cut. You've seen a replay of what happened there, and Stan Christodoulou having to make a very important decision indeed. Now, this could either cost Galindez his world title, or it could lead to a momentous decision on the part of Christodoulou. It's Tito Lectori working on Galindez in the corner. He's the champion's manager and trainer. Cates obviously confused. I think he thinks he's won the world title, and so do quite a few people around ringside. Photographers have climbed into the ring now. Surely this suggests that the fight is over. And Galindez, we can't even see him now. They're working on his eye in the corner. And there's lots of confusion. Nobody really knows what's happened. You can note that Cates, in fact, has got a towel draped over him. He's waiting to be proclaimed the new world champion. Well, Rufus Papenfuss, the ring announcer, trying to clear the ring and call for calm. Be very interesting to see what decision they come up with here. Well, the Americans arguing that the title should be awarded to Cates, but referee Stan Christodoulou explaining the rules. At the rules meeting earlier in the day, it was decided that if there's an accidental butt and which causes a cut, there will be a maximum of 5 minutes in which the corner of the man who has been injured can work on that injury. And this is what Christodoulou has enforced here this evening, and now the fight gets underway. So Richie Cates is not the world champion. He thought he was, and my goodness, look at Galindez come back. He's fighting ferociously here in the third round. He realizes his title is on the line and once again complaining about a headbutt, but Christodoulou hasn't taken too much notice of that. Bear in mind, of course, that Galindez does come from Argentina. He does have a Latin temperament, and he's a very angry young man here this evening. Referee having trouble separating the men. This was a boxing match. It's now become a bloody battle. And both men complaining to the referee about the tactics being used on the inside. But Galindez's corner has done a remarkably good job in sealing that cut. Whether it will bleed as the fight progresses and whether Cates can open it again. Of course, he's got that very sharp left jab, so he's obviously going to try and do exactly that. Remains to be seen. Galindez a little unsettled, and that's understandable because he can see his title slipping from his grasp. Many thought it already had until the no-foul rule was invoked here this evening. Cates appears to have lost a little of his rhythm and range, and with that 5-minute break, that's understandable too. He's got to basically start all over again. He's still relying heavily on the left jab, and it's working beautifully for him. And Galindez's handicap, cut on the eye, realizes a certain amount of desperation about this fight as we come to the end of the round. And what a dramatic round that was. It'll go down in boxing history as something exceptional. And to the credit of Stan Christodoulou, he invoked the no-foul rule at exactly the right time. The round went for 5.5 minutes, or the break was 5.5 minutes, I should say. So that was a particularly long round. It's obviously affected both men. Here we are at the start of the fourth. And the big question, of course, is whether Galindez can recover from that experience and retain his title here this evening. Remember, the fight is scheduled for 15 rounds. Richie Cates really thought he was a ready champion after the third round, but he isn't. And here is Galindez putting on the pressure, letting his punches go as he backs Cates up against the ropes. Cates bobbing, weaving, trying to avoid these punches. Showing lots of skill, but quite a few of those blows are getting through. And there's a great uppercut from Cates on the inside. You saw Galindez's head jolt backwards. But this is the kind of fight that Galindez wants. He doesn't want a boxing match. He wants a brawl. And now Cates is playing into his hands, whether he likes it or not. Once again, a warning from Stan Christodoulou to Cates to watch the head. The heads have already done far too much damage in this fight, and naturally the referee will be very, very conscious of that. Blood pouring from that cut on Galindez's right eye as he works on the inside, throwing punches wide, trying to end this fight here and now. And Cates bobbing, weaving, doing his utmost to survive. Being driven back against the ropes. And again, the referee is obliged to separate the fighters. Well, Galindez's face, as you can see, a mask of blood. Cates has managed to open that cut yet again. I don't know if they really managed to seal it. It's such a bad one. And the blood is pouring into the eye of Galindez. That's obviously going to affect his vision. He'll put a certain urgency about onto his work. He's got to work very hard here. Try and end this fight as early as he can. There's still a long way to go. Well, this pressure from Galindez has definitely unsettled Cates. You notice that Galindez getting on the inside at every opportunity, and Cates unable to keep him out as he did in the first couple of rounds, using the jab to keep Galindez on the end of his punches. But now it's Cates' turn. Missed with the left, missed with the right, but he's fallen into a clinch. We've seen far more clinches now than earlier. And look at the blood on the face of Galindez. Cates doubling up on the jab. Galindez keeps wiping the blood from his eye. Who can blame him? He's virtually been reduced to a one-eyed fighter because of that cut. And still the heads clash as the men come to close quarters. They fall into a clinch. Still, Cates doubling up on the jab. Galindez trying to get to grips as we come to the end of the round. A much better round for Victor Galindez. And once again, Tito Lectori immediately starts working on the cut in the corner. Joe Granby is the man in charge of Richie Cates' corner. Cates fortunately doesn't have any of those kind of problems, but there's no question about it. The drama we've seen here this evening has unsettled the American challenger, and he needs to get his rhythm and range back once again. Well, referee Stan Christodoulou checking on that cut. There's always a danger that if it worsens, the referee may be obliged to stop this fight. And you can bet your bottom dollar no one is more aware of that than Victor Galindez. His title is on the line. Useful right, good left hook from Galindez, opening up with both hands, driving Cates back against the ropes. Cates bobbing, weaving, trying to avoid these punches, forced onto the defensive early here in the 5th round. Very little coming back from Cates at the moment, as Galindez has him backed up into a corner, really letting his punches go. And that's a low punch. Referee Christodoulou has picked it up, warning Galindez. Well, this has been a rough brawl from round 3. Boxing science went out the window when the heads clashed and caused that terrible gash on Galindez's eye. And once again, the blood keeps streaming down the face of Galindez. You can see how it's affecting his vision. He's flicking his head, wiping the blood away with his gloves. Under a terrible handicap was Victor Galindez. Well, already the shirt of referee Stan Christodoulou getting blood soaked from the blood streaming down the face of Galindez. You begin to wonder how much blood Galindez is likely to lose in this fight. It's scheduled for 15 rounds. And the cut is simply too big, too wide to seal. And I guess the wonder is that the fight has not been stopped, but so much at stake in this fight, the light heavyweight championship of the world. And that's something Victor Galindez is not easy to give up. Well, Cates trying to get back into his rhythm and range. He relied heavily on the left jab in the early rounds and looked very good using it. But after the incident in the 3rd, he's been unsettled, and who can blame him? And with the pressure coming from Galindez, it's really put him out of his stride. But now Cates has Galindez backed up against the ropes, hooks him with the left and then uses the arm and the elbow. This has become a rough fight. Almost anything goes, and referee Christodoulou has his work cut out controlling it. Well, I've never seen a man with so much blood on his face as Galindez as we come to the end of the round. He's in appalling condition. Once again, it's Galindez's corner working on the cut. All they can do really is wipe the face clean. There's nothing they can do to seal that cut. It's simply too big and too wide. And in any event, Cates takes every opportunity to open it up once the bleeding stops. Well, yeah, you can see Galindez's face is clear at the moment, but not going to stay that way for long because Cates using that left jab to thread the defense of Galindez and reopen the cut. Cates' white trunks, you can see, are blood-stained, and the shirt of referee Stan Christodoulou. Well, Galindez looks as though he's decided to work from behind his own left jab. Looking to regain control of this fight. He roughed up Cates in the previous round. He's taken his time here. Well, it is 15 rounds. He's got to pace himself. He can't dare to take the risk of punching himself out. And that applies to Cates as well. Cates getting his rhythm and range back. Doubling up on that left jab. And after all the rough stuff we've seen in the last few rounds, it's back to boxing basics. Cates trying an uppercut. Didn't quite work for him, but the intention was good. And it looks as though Cates is once again regaining control of the fight. Well, it depends whether Galindez will allow him to do that. This is a very brave champion indeed, shown tremendous courage here this evening. Galindez forcing his way in. He's got to get close up. He's more effective on the inside than he is from a distance. He's got to slip that left jab of Cates. And Cates is working sweetly with the left hand. He's regained his composure and pretty much regained control of the fight. Galindez, as you can see, being backed up, drops his hands, inviting Cates to come on the inside. Well, of course, he wants him there. That's where he wants him to be. Cates is too experienced and too wary to fall for those tricks. Prefers to use the left hand from the outside. And look at the damage it's causing. Once again, the blood streaming down the face of Galindez. Doesn't take too much to open the wound above his right eye. Oh, a good left hook from Galindez. This is worth the follow-up punches, but now he's letting his punches go. Cates looks to be in trouble as he's backed up against the ropes, bobbing, weaving, slipping many of these punches, but a great many are also landing. Overhead right, studying on Cates' neck. Christodoulou struggles to pull the men apart, but still Cates is back into action immediately. This is a bad time for Richie Cates. And it's referee Christodoulou who rescues him as we come to the bell. Well, there's uproar here at the Rand Stadium. That was a tremendous fight back by Galindez. Very few men capable of doing that, boxing under the handicap that he is. And all credit to the champion. Well, whatever advantage Richie Cates might have had early in the round, he lost a lot of it towards the end. And now Galindez determined to make him pay even further here at the start of the seventh. Well, Cates forcing his way on the inside, using his body weight to pin Galindez against the ropes. But that's not going to score points. And in any event, Galindez wants him to come on the inside. That's where he's at his best. The Argentinian, I beg your pardon, is essentially a brawler. And under these circumstances, he would prefer to fight close up. Well, Cates, whose white trunks now look more red than white, slipping behind on points a little, trying to get the left hand to work for him once again. And it really is a nice left hand, isn't it? It really does score points. Unsettles Galindez, but the champion forcing his way on the inside yet again. Countering beautifully with that right hand. There is little finesse about Galindez. He is essentially a fighter. A good combination from the champion. First the left, then the right. Now he goes over the top with the right hand. Once again, Cates is in trouble, backed up against the ropes, trying to avoid these punches, but many of them are getting home, getting through the guard of the American. This is a big opportunity for Victor Galindez. Once again, referee Christodoulou has to separate the men, but immediately Galindez back into action. Firing uppercuts, hooks, right crosses, going over the top, anything that can land. And Cates in desperate trouble. Trying to cover up, trying to avoid these punches, backed up against the ropes. And this could be the moment of truth for the American. Unrelentless attack by Galindez. Cates now manages to hold him in a clinch. Once again, the men are separated. Richie Cates survived that attack, goodness only knows. In fact, he's even beginning to fight back. Another right uppercut jolts back the head of Richie Cates, and now he goes down. And who can blame him for that? It was inevitable. He attempts to rise. Will he get up? Referee Christodoulou counts to 8. Cates back on his feet, but still in lots of trouble. Can Galindez finish the fight here and now? He's certainly trying. Tremendous punches going over the top. The American showing lots of courage and a great deal of defensive skill in avoiding some of these punches, slipping others, and now beginning to fight back as we come to the end of the round.
Boxing discussion coming up next.
Well, with 7 rounds in the book, chances are Galindez has regained the lead after that very useful start by Richie Cates. So despite the handicap and that ugly gash above his eye, the champion is fighting like a champion. Fighting like an animal, in fact, and that's his nickname. Now we know why they call him the animal. Here we are at the start of the 8th, of what has been a fascinating fight. We've seen boxing skill, we've seen the ruggedness of the champion, and it's not over yet. Scheduled for 15 rounds. Well, Richie Cates looked to be in a lot of trouble in the 7th. He needs to try and regain some control of this fight, but he's up against a real tiger in Victor Galindez. This man never knows when to quit. And although he's backed up against the ropes, so you see he's still fighting back, firing hooks, uppercuts, and now going over the head once again. It was a barrage like this which put Cates on the canvas in the 7th, and Galindez would dearly love to repeat that here in the 8th. This fight has been fought at an incredibly fast pace for light heavyweights, and you begin to wonder how the men can keep it up. But they're in superb physical condition. And Galindez in particular has a determination of a man who simply refuses to be beaten. It was a great opportunity for Cates to win this fight, particularly after that clash of heads in the 3rd. But the ferocious fight back by Galindez simply turned the fight around. And Cates' corner are sure to have advised him to go back to boxing, working from behind the left jab, because that's when he's at his best. And if the men look as though they're taking a breather, well, we can understand why. It's been a furious fight, fought at a tremendous pace. There seems not to be the snap behind Cates as we saw earlier. And Tito Lictori almost quite climbed up on the ring apron there. He's very unhappy about what happened in that incident, but referee Christodoulou waved him back. Yes, the pace has slackened here in the 8th. There's no question about it. Both men taking a bit of a breather. And Cates relying on the left jab, not doubling up on the punch as he had done earlier. But now Galindez starting to counter punch, and that was a good shot to the body from the champion. He's got a wide variety of punches. Goes over the top, hooks, uppercuts, jabs. And yet he's not considered a boxer. He is essentially a fighter. And my goodness, he's shown a fighting art here this evening. Well, Cates has got him backed up against the ropes. Doesn't seem to be able to do too much about it. Galindez probably looking for his second wind. He has fought furiously in this fight. There's no question about it. This is a breather round for both men. Cates trying to shake the cobwebs out of his head. Took a bit of a beating in the 7th. And referee Christodoulou obliged to warn Galindez to keep his punches up as we come to the end of the round. Cates didn't look quite so good in round 8 as we might have expected, but then of course he took a beating in the 7th, so can't blame him for that. Round 9 scheduled for 15. And this fight is balanced on a knife edge. It could still go either way. And surprisingly, Cates prepared to fight on the inside. He was working from behind the jab early in the fight, but now he actually went to close quarters, tried to fire a lot of uppercuts, but look at Galindez come back. This is exactly what he wants. He wants to fight on the inside. It's an invitation he's happy to accept. Cates once again pushing Galindez back with the jab, leaning all over the champion. Both men showing signs of fatigue. And there certainly is a lack of snap in the punches of the challenger. He's pushing out the jab now. He's not snapping it out as he did earlier. But Galindez is a very powerful man. Very strong indeed, and particularly when he gets up close on the inside. Well, that was a good uppercut from Cates. Cates relying heavily on the uppercut here in round 8. Hooks, uppercuts on the inside. not working as much as we saw earlier from behind the jab. Still hasn't forgotten the basics, though, because he used a couple of left hands to get on the inside there. But now Galindez has turned the tide. He's got Cates backed up in the corner, forcing the American to defend. And still, it's Cates relying on the uppercut. But Galindez takes those punches very well indeed. And the champion looks to be getting the better of this exchange. Both men wrapping each other with short right hands to the head and uppercuts coming up on the inside from Cates. And again, referee Christodoulou obliged to separate the men. You can see Cates hasn't forgotten the basics. He still fires the left hands first before following up with the right. Doesn't mean very much to Galindez. He just wants to get in there and trade. But he is looking a little disorientated himself. Seems to have lost his way. It's an opportunity for Cates to get back into this fight. And once again, their heads clashing as they get on the inside. It's remember, it was the right eye that was ripped open in the third round. And heaven help Galindez if he's cut on the left. Well, now Galindez has decided to let his punches go, ripping shots to head and body. Cates forced to try and defend as he's backed up against the ropes. But look at the stream of punches coming from Galindez, and some very powerful blows have connected on the inside. Cates looks to be in desperate trouble once again. Will he go down? He's beginning to stagger against the ropes, and the bell comes to his rescue. Talk about being saved by the bell. Well, you can see how he staggers back to his corner. Richie Cates really was. Final instructions from Tito Lectori as he prepares Galindez to answer the bell for the 10th round. And once again, Cates was in desperate trouble seconds before the bell saved him in the 9th. Galindez means to take advantage of that. He's picking up from where he left off. Cates once again looks to be in desperate trouble against the ropes, trying to hold, but not very effectively. And look at that right uppercut from the champion, jolting back the head of the challenger. Missing with a lot of his punches in his eagerness to let them go, but very little coming back from Richie Cates. How he's managed to survive this onslaught, goodness only knows. He too has a very big heart indeed. Galindez scoring with shots now almost at will. Cates trying to get his left jab working, just pushes the left into the face of Galindez, but look at the punishment he's taking in return. Galindez banging lefts, rights, the body to the head. And Cates still unable to get away from the ropes. Well, I don't know what's keeping him up. Maybe it's the ropes that are doing that. A relentless attack from the champion, a stream of punches, lefts, rights, almost every blow landing, and still Cates is standing. Well, finally, referee Christodoulou separates the men. And in desperation, Richie Cates tries to use the left hand, but takes a solid right to the jaw instead. And once again, Galindez has got him backed up against the ropes. He's been there for almost the entire round, taking these solid shots to the head and the body from the champion. Galindez in complete control in this round. The wonder is how on earth Cates can stand on his feet. Not only is he tired, he's been badly hurt. It says much for his courage that he's still there. Well, the men are trading. I should train. Well, it's all coming from Galindez, isn't it? Very little coming back from Cates. And the punches that Cates does manage to get off, not much power behind. Where on earth does this Argentinian get his strength? He never stops firing punches, looking for the one big punch that could end this fight for him. But Cates simply refuses to go down. Trying to get a bit of bounce back into his legs as Cates, he's moved back into the center of the ring, and that's a good move on his part. He's been trapped against the ropes for much of this round, and he was punished severely by the champion. A useful left from Cates drives Galindez rather, drives Cates back to the ropes. And once more, Cates is backed up against the ropes as the round comes to an end. A big, big round for the champion. And now it's the Cates corner that is showing signs of concern. And who can blame them? Well, Galindez has overcome that handicap of the cut on his right eye incredibly well. Showed the fighting heart of a champion and has virtually taken control of this fight. Immediately, Cates falls into a clinch. All right, he's got Galindez backed up against the ropes, but that's simply not his style. That Cates prefers to work from the outside and from a distance using the jab, but it'll give you some indication of the state of the fight, as it were. Galindez stronger, probably hitting the harder and punishing this American time and again with shots to head and body. Once more, Cates backed up against the ropes. Galindez just keeps letting his punches go. That left jab from Cates looked good, not much power behind it though. Trying to unsettle the champion once more. That punch, the jab worked well for him in the early round, but then it had a lot of snap behind it. Now he's just pushing out the punch. And Galindez shows little concern. Walks right through those punches. Referee Chris Tadulu very quick to break the men when they get into a clinch, and that's understandable when you consider the damage that was done in the third round by a clash of heads. Cates hasn't got back into the fight. He's trying to bounce around the ring, get some life back into his legs, but he's still on the receiving end, and it's still Galindez who's in control. Well, Galindez has tried everything to put this man on the floor again. Hasn't succeeded, and that's a testimony to the courageous fight that Richie Cates is putting up here this evening. Well, the men fall easily into a clinch, and I guess that shows their signs of fatigue. The fight has been fought at remarkably high pace for light heavyweights. Remember, the World Boxing Association Light Heavyweight Championship of the world is at stake. And it's Galindez who's defending. As his title is on the line. And my goodness, he's made a remarkable comeback and from that third round. And once again, the blood beginning to pour from that cut, that huge gash above his right eye. Galindez virtually been reduced to a one-eyed fighter. But that hasn't stopped him from regaining control of this fight and punishing Cates severely. Remember, Cates was on the canvas in the 7th round and looked to be going down in the 8th and the 9th. Cates actually thought he had won the fight in the 3rd round, waiting to be proclaimed the winner, but referee Stan Christodoulou invoked the no-foul rule, and here we come to the end of the 11th. Another good round for the champion. Well, there's a lot of concern in the corner of Richie Cates, and that's understandable. He's a very tired young man indeed. Here we come out for the 12th round, scheduled for 15. And Cates really has to try and get back into this fight. He's lost the initiative he had in the early rounds, being punished severely by Victor Galindez. And despite that terrible handicap that the champion has, Cates hasn't really been able to take full advantage of it. Now we see Galindez backing away from Cates. He's presumably trying to lure the challenger in on the inside, and he does, but they quickly fall into a clinch. Cates trying hard to get that left jab working for him. But it's lost a lot of its snap. It doesn't carry the power that it did earlier on, and it's certainly not troubling Galindez the way it did. And now Galindez has Cates where he wants him, backed up against the ropes, bangs a few blows to the body. Once again, referee separates them. Referee Christodoulou very quick to pull the men apart when they look as though their heads might clash. And Christodoulou decides to take a look at that cut. Has it got worse? Well, it certainly hasn't got better. And Cates would hope, of course, that it got worse and he could possibly win on a technical knockout, but I don't think that's going to be. Christodoulou giving the champion every opportunity to retain his title here this evening. In what has been a bloodbath of a fight. There's blood all over the canvas, there's blood on Christodoulou's shirt, there's blood on Cates's boxing trunks, and there's blood all over the face of the champion. Well, Galindez pushing out a left of his own. We haven't seen too many of those from the champion. He prefers to get up close and bang shots to head and body. Got a useful uppercut. Good right cross over the top as we come to the end of the round. And that was a useful round for Galindez. Not the same sort of action we saw earlier, but fight scheduled for 15. There's still 3 rounds to go. Well, Cates has shown signs of tiredness, and he's probably moved more than Galindez has in this fight, and so I guess that's understandable. That's Tito Lectori wiping the face of Galindez as he comes out of his corner for the 13th round. And immediately Cates traps Galindez on the ropes. Doesn't do much damage though. Has Cates found his second win? That's what he needs. He looks a very tired young man, does Richie Cates. Galindez using good body shifts to avoid punches when not taking those shots from Cates, you notice. He's slipping them quite well. Then comes back with a good right hand over the top. Then to the body. Bouncing around this ring is Galindez. Arms held low, almost inviting Cates to come on the inside. Doubling up with the jab now, Galindez. Stream of left hands going into the face of Richie Cates. Taunting the American to come in and fight. Well, Richie Cates does come in, but he doesn't really fight, does he? They fall into a clinch, and the referee's obliged to separate them. Well, Cates doubling up on his own jab now. He's taking some of the play away from Galindez with that left hand. Seems to be getting a bit more snap back into the punches, Richie Cates. Galindez drawing him in. Doesn't mind being with his back to the ropes. Slips that left jab from Cates. And then bangs a right to the side of the head. And the left. Galindez countering very cleverly here in the 13th round. Cates once more relying on long punches, using that jab to open Galindez for the right cross. Although those punches from Cates are looking a lot better here in this round than they did earlier, still lacks the snap that they did in rounds 1, 2, and 3. Well, Cates leaning all over Galindez as he's got him backed up against the ropes. Very little happened on that exchange. Both men showing signs of fatigue. A good left to the body from Galindez. Then he goes over the top, wrapping Cates with rights to the head, forcing the American to hold on. Every now and then, Galindez lets his punches go, and invariably, Cates falls into some trap or other. There's the bell. And Cates very eager to get back to his stool and enjoy a minute's rest. This has been a grueling fight for him. A man who thought he had won at the end of the 3rd, still fighting here in the 14th. And Victor Galindez, who thought he might have lost his title at the end of the 3rd, still hanging on to it by the proverbial thread. So this is round 14, scheduled for 15. At stake, the World Boxing Association Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. And defending that title, Victor Galindez of Argentina. Well, not only has this been a bloodbath of a battle, it's been one of the most dramatic scenes in South Africa. Now Galindez sinks to the canvas. I think that was a low punch. Yes, he's indicating that it was low. Men touch gloves. That's a very sporting gesture by both men. Well, Galindez once again backed up against the ropes. But Cates just doesn't have the snap in his punches to take full advantage of the situation. He's pushing out his punches. He's not snapping them out as he did earlier. And although Galindez not doing very much here on the 14, still gives me the impression that he's the stronger man of the two. Somehow or other, the corner of Galindez has managed to stop the blood streaming down the champion's face. They've pushed a lot of stuff into the gap above the eye. Goodness knows what they were using. Another left, and that was low, clearly low. And now referee Stan Christodoulou has to warn Cates about that. You can see Tito Lectori protesting vigorously from the corner. Galindez not happy at all, and you begin to wonder why Cates is misdirecting those body shots. Well, that could have cost Cates a point on the scorecards. Galindez looking, feeling very uncomfortable indeed after those two low blows. And I dare say he'll be happy to hear the sound of the bell. Cates unable to take full advantage of the situation. He keeps on pushing out that left jab, but little else. Maybe he's a little cautious, having been warned twice in this round for low blows. He's got to be careful. He can still be disqualified, even under the no-foul rule. If referee Christodoulou deems the punches to be deliberate, Richie Cates can be disqualified. Well, now Cates comes back with a blow on the belt line. He obviously wants to get it. I beg your pardon, that was Galindez coming back with a blow on the belt line, trying to get his own back, I guess. And there's the bell ending a very eventful round. One that should have gone to Cates, but may not have because of the two low punches. Well, this fight is still balanced on a knife edge. 1 round to go. And who would have thought it would go 15 rounds after the drama we saw in the third? Very few people around this ringside would have thought that. But here they are, shaking hands at the start of the 15th and final round. Galindez probably has a points lead, but who can tell? And they say a challenger has to take the title from a champion, so it's really up to Cates to try and finish this round very strongly indeed, to catch the eye of the judges, and he's certainly doing that, working well from behind the jab, throwing far more leather here in the 15th than he did in the 14th when he kept misdirecting punches, driving Galindez back. Forcing the champion onto the ropes. Using that jab to set up Galindez. Very little coming back from Galindez at this stage. Galindez quite happy to hold, chewing up the clock. That's a good left jab from Richie Cates. And another. Once more the left hand working smoothly for the challenger. Galindez taunts him, invites him to come on the inside, and now the champion cuts loose. But in his eagerness, he threw a left hand and fell over, slipping on this blood-stained canvas. Well, Cates has Galindez where he wants him, backed up against the ropes. But there's little he can do. Galindez holds on with both hands. You see how cleverly Galindez traps the arms and gloves of Cates on the inside. Champion is also buying time. Now Cates keeps coming forward, and that could be to Galindez's advantage. He is essentially a counter-puncher who likes to fight on the inside. With the challenger coming to him, he may yet score with a solid punch. You see he's trying the left hook, then the right. Now he's opening up with both hands, driving Cates back. And once again, referee Christodoulou forced to separate the men from the clinch. Well, this is the kind of action that Galindez likes. Trading blow for blow on the inside. Not nearly as comfortable when Cates is working from behind the left jab. Galindez slipped that left jab from Cates rather easily. Saw it coming from way back. And there's little Cates can do once he gets up close. Good uppercut from Galindez. That jolted back the head of Richie Cates. Now can Richie... yes, and Galindez taken full advantage. Followed up with a left hook, and he's put the challenger down flat on his back. He says, "You're finished." Well, not quite. Cates trying to get up, but referee Christodoulou has counted him out, and there's the champion. Richie Victor Galindez has retained his title on a fantastic knockout here in the 15th round. It's just pandemonium round ringside, and who would have thought that this man would win this fight with seconds to go to end the 15th round? He did. Victor Galindez, still the light heavyweight champion of the world. Look at, he's going to celebrate.
More Sansui Classic Top Sport after this.
Title defense.